our community during this time. I'll highlight our e-resources in particular, and then some of our more kind of traditional resources, talk a little bit about the value of libraries, and then get some feedback and take some questions from you guys. That's kind of the plan. So if I could just give you a quick introduction of me, other than the one John did, which was great. Like I said, I grew up in mostly in Illinois, the Midwest. I was on the West Coast till about 11 in the Bay Area, but I lived most of my life in Northern Illinois in a small, they would call it a suburb, I would call it rural. When you live in a backyard, your backyard is 35 acres of corn. I think that's really hard to call that suburban. So I'm from a kind of small town in Illinois called Marengo. If anyone knows that, I'll be very, very impressed. Worked in libraries for my high school and my junior college career. Didn't really think of much of it other than filling my gas tank and buying CDs when people still did that. So that was kind of my why I got into it. So then I went and got my degree in business. Thought I was going to be a big business guy, and I'm a mission-driven guy. I really enjoyed the work I was doing, but for me, I really needed to do something that just felt like I was serving the greater good. So I looked back what really was meaningful to me, and that was helping people through a library setting. So I knew I wanted to go into libraries, so I went into academic libraries for a bit there. And then after doing that and realizing this is absolutely my passion, I realized that it's public libraries that are really my passion, and I got back into public libraries. So I worked in Colorado Springs, Iowa, and most recently the Lincoln Library in Springfield, Illinois, which whenever I say I last lived in Springfield, everyone goes, "Oh, pretty close." And I go, a little bit farther than that. So that's enough about me. I'm just really excited to talk to you guys about libraries here today. I find myself being really excited about libraries, which I know sounds crazy, but I think you'll see that I'm pretty excited, and I'll do my best to keep it within the amount. I know we're time constraints, so I'll move on here. So I would be remiss if I did not mention, and if you don't, again, having trouble hearing me or anything, please type something in. I want to make sure I'm responsive to you guys as well. The app's a little different, so I'm getting used to the browser, so I can't see all your faces and reactions and things like that because there's little clappy hands and the thumbs up, and I don't have that on here, so it makes it a little bit harder, so I'll do my best. But again, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the library right now is closed. So our physical doors are closed. We're kind of looking forward. We're working with our city experts who's working with like Lane County Health, things like that, to kind of determine how we can best open. And our staff is very anxious to help. We're really excited about getting back to the library and helping you. We just want to make sure that we're staying safe and doing our best to mitigate that. So, and while our physical doors are closed currently, we've tried our best to actually open up our virtual doors. So right now, what we've actually done is we've actually been able to have inclusion and access is really important for us. So we've actually opened it up so people can still apply for library cards online. And I was a little surprised in a good way to find out that we're kind of on track for having the same number of cards we did in May 2019, which was our lowest month last year. We're actually on track for that as well this year, too, for April. So I was really impressed by that. We actually have slightly larger numbers than that. We've also made it so we've pushed back. The last thing we want people to do during this time is to worry about returning a library book or not getting access because you're expired, your card is expired. So we've actually pushed that kind of indefinitely. We've used June 30th as a placeholder, but we're committed to being as flexible as we need to be, whatever this kind of looks like. So again, we've moved those book due dates, we moved those expirations. We've also taken away, normally if we have $10 or more worth of fines, we have it so you can't use some of the materials. We call that being restricted or being blocked. And so right now we've actually eliminated that as well because our big focus is getting and helping support our community during now. Access is the number one thing for us. We've also made it so we know lots of kids are at home and some of our resources, our databases, which again sounds a lot cooler when you hear what they are rather than just saying databases. I promise they are, and I'll talk about those a little bit later on. But we know that they really need support. So we've actually opened it up. So traditionally, our library serves the city of Eugene proper, and we've kind of opened it up that if you're in the Eugene area, we're really not worried about that because right now the most important thing for us is to be able to support our community and get it kind of what it needs. Speaking of what our community needs, I think information right now is really, really critical. I think it's maybe more important than even before, getting good relevant information. And so actually our phones and chat service has never closed. So again, our virtual doors, we're trying to open as much and wide as possible because that's really important with our physical doors being closed. And so again, we're really focused on that inclusion. That's really, really important for us to be able to do. Just lost my train of thought right there. Sorry about that. But again, like I said, it's more important to have that than ever. We've gotten rid of the fines. We've made it so that if you're in the community, you can go ahead and apply for a card. Our phones, there I am picking it up. Our phones actually in chat are still open, and we're getting lots and lots of calls per day. Actually, I think in April we got about 1,500 phone calls, which is pretty good. We actually, a lot of times they're pretty in-depth questions because people right now are adapting. So it's not only the normal question of like, what's this phone number? Can you tell me this answer? The more question is, I have this tablet that I've never used and I want to get your library resources. How do I do that? So it's not only teaching them about library resources, but from afar kind of troubleshooting people with their technology. So that's what our community needs right now. So that's what kind of we're doing. So really impressive. I think we've done a nice job with that, if I may say so myself. We've also adapted kind of how this is working right now. I think it's we've adapted to putting our resources right now into electronic resources. That's something right now we've kind of adapted to a little bit because we know that's how people are accessing this right now. So we've really put a lot of stock into those right now and really bumped them up. So to tell you a little bit more about that, when you hear me, I'll use two different terminologies. I'm going to invite you in the library world right here and break it down a little bit. I don't want to give you too much library speak, but just so you know what I'm talking about. We have e-resources, which are basically mirrors the things that you would normally check out physically from the library. So that includes e-audiobooks, e-books, things like the comics, movies, music. All those things have an electronic version as well. So if you ever hear me say e-resources, it's kind of those things you consume in that way, media. And then the other bit is actually our databases, which I know sounds really boring, but I promise they're more dynamic than you might initially think. So this is talking about things like lynda.com, Ancestry, in addition to your normal kind of looking up there. So when you hear me say databases, just know it's a little bit more expansive, and I'll get into those a little bit later and highlight some in particular because I think they're the most relevant resource right now. I will talk a little bit later about our kind of more traditional stuff than when we're in more normal time, so to speak. But I'll focus again today just on those digital ones because that's what's going to be relevant for you. So with our e-resources, we've actually seen a 50% increase. We normally get about 30,000 items checked out per month. We're, as of yesterday, at 47,000, about a little bit under 47,000. So we're actually seeing over a 50% increase in our online resources being checked out. And again, I just wanted to highlight a couple of them for you guys. So, we have all the different things you want. So I'll highlight, I think, the best resource for each one of those individual items. So for ebooks, we have something called Library to Go. It's also known as Overdrive or Libby. So it's a couple different names for it. Trying not to make it confusing, but I think we did. That's actually going to be your best bet for those ebooks. So lots and lots on there. We still have lots available. So if you're stuck at home and need something to read, that's a really good one, Library to Go. For our e-audiobooks, I would actually recommend Hoopla. So if you're still driving a lot or if you're just sitting and you're tired of reading, I'm a librarian, I read all the time, but even I get tired of reading sometimes. So to have a book be read to you is really, really nice. Actually Hoopla is really, really good for that. It is a no waiting model. So basically it's an on-demand type model. You can actually download that ebook just right there and there's no waiting. It's got a lot of great titles in it, a lot of selection. I believe there's over 350,000 different ebook titles on there, if I'm not mistaken. So there's lots and lots to choose from, and there's lots of availability because it's not a queue model, it's a on-demand type model. It's also a really great place for comics. So if any of you guys are fans of comics, you can actually get into those. A lot of people use them because they're they're pretty popular. They look really nice. And additionally, if you're interested in magazines, maybe you're still getting that subscription, but you're not interested in touching, or you want to try something else to maybe see if you want to subscribe to that long term. We have something called RB Digital, which has about 75 to 100 magazines at any time that are kind of in full HD color. They look great. National Geographic's the one I always look at. It actually has additional content in it that's necessarily in your print version as well. And then the last highlight resource I really wanted to highlight here in terms of our e-resources is called Canopy, K-A-N-O-P-Y. I think it's our newest resource, especially for our e-resources. It's our newest one where you can actually stream video. We have a little bit on Hoopla, but it only has limited. Canopy actually is like kind of a similar type thing to Netflix. It is focused on, I believe their quote, so I will use it, their quote, not mine, is movies of cultural significance. So what that means, and so people ask me, what does that mean? So it means, of course, movies like, you're going to find kind of your Schindler's List, things like that on there. You'll find more modern popular things like maybe Moonlight. We have great courses on there as well. It's going to have things like from the Criterion Collection, like Fifth Element, and all sorts of different things. So when people hear movies of cultural significance, there's actually a lot more depth and breadth than you might think, especially with the documentaries. Oh, and they have great, if any of you have kids or are taking care of kids, they have a lot of great kids media on there as well, all streaming movies, videos, things like that. And again, great courses is on there as well, and those are really great if you're interested in kind of doing a little bit more, learning something, picking up a skill during this time. It's really a great resource. I would definitely tell you to look at it. If you are looking for Hot Tub Time Machine, you will be out of luck. It is, again, movies of cultural significance. Everyone here thinks those are significant. It might not be the ones that are carrying. So just want to make sure I highlight those and let you know those are available as well. So if you're stuck at home and you really like to get some more media, here's a great way to be able to do that for you with your library card as well. And if you don't have a library card, you can still call in and get that taken care of. And so I wanted to kind of move on, transition to the databases. Again, I know we probably need a better term for calling them databases because it doesn't really completely encompass that. So that does include your traditional kind of white paper, research-oriented databases where you look up information, things like that. But it also includes a lot of other dynamic resources such as lynda.com, Mango Languages, BrainFuse, and a couple other ones as well. And I want to highlight those at least 3 today because I think they're particularly relevant. So lynda.com, now is usually the time where I ask if anyone has lynda.com at their house, and someone almost always raises their hand. And I can say, if you have that subscription, you can go ahead and cancel it if you have a library card because it's absolutely free to use. It's about $5 if you do it yourself. So I'll just pretend someone raised their hand and say, if you have that subscription, go ahead and cancel it because the library is able to help you out with that. And then I'll take. And I see some are coming in, so I'll make sure to kind of cover those as best I can at the end. So thank you. Keep typing. I really appreciate that. And then for lynda.com, it's actually a suite of online videos. To call them kind of YouTube videos doesn't do them justice. These are by professionals who are experts in their field. So if you're just Bob down the street teaching you how to use Excel, it's actually someone who does that for a living or as a professor or as an expert of that field. It really is useful for a couple different areas. It's for professional development, so kind of your business skills that might be particularly relevant for you guys here. It's also going to be good for software and then some creative things as well. And it's really good for the Venn diagram of these things, those overlaps. I find that's the best areas it is. So kind of that business and software skills, looking at things like Microsoft Office. It actually is really great because it can start with anywhere you're at. If you're a novice, intermediate, advanced, or an expert, it can kind of meet you where you're at. There's lots of assignments, things like that. So it's really quite good and full. It also kind of works not only on those hard skills, but also soft skills, such as time management, things like that. And then even additionally, it has a class on humor in the workplace, which my staff is very sad that I've taken because I didn't attempt humor in the workplace and they're not particularly happy about that. It doesn't make you funny. It just makes you know that there's humor in the workplace and how to best use it. So that's really great that it has that. It has software, so software resources. So if you're interested in maybe learning how to right now program, if you're interested in like C++, it has things on that. If you're interested in maybe building a website, you can actually learn how to build a website. It has something called learning paths, which are basically kind of tutorials based on a goal. So whenever I go on there, I'm not thinking, hey, I want to learn SolidWorks. I'm thinking I'd like to accomplish something. So when I go on there, I would like to build a website. they've actually curated the best videos for you to watch, like 10 or 13 videos that take you in order. And at the end, if you do all the work and you put in the time and effort, you should have the skills to be able to do that task. So one's build a website. My favorite personal one is become an EDM, electro dance music producer. So I'd be interested after this to hear all the great house music coming from this group. So if you're interested in that, there's a learning path for you. So that's lynda.com, and there's lots more in there. I would definitely tell you it's one of the highest quality things. It's just really, really good. I can't talk about it enough. I always say if you haven't taken a look at it and you have some time now, which you might, and you want to learn a new skill, it's really, really good. Again, it's great for business software, and then some creative as well, kind of things like camera, et cetera, et cetera. I did want to highlight also Mango Languages. So if you want to take this time to perhaps learn a different language, there's a really great resource out there called Mango Languages. It's a lot like Rosetta Stone. Rosetta Stone's a little bit more for your intermediate experts. Mango Languages is a little bit more approachable, a little bit more fun. It uses movies and music and all sorts of different things to kind of teach you those resources, teach you how to use that language. Sorry, I just got a phone call. I had to mute that one. So it does teach you how to do all sorts of different languages. I believe it's over 70 different languages are on there, if I'm not mistaken. And there's also a couple fun ones like Talk Like a Pirate, things like that. It's not as good for maybe your advanced user. That might not be the right fit, but if you're an intermediate or beginner, it's really a great fit for you guys as well, fit for somebody there as well. And again, all these are free to use, unlimited amount as long as you have your library card. And then the last one I really want to, well, there might be two, so you'll have to give me a little bit more on this one. But another one I wanted to make sure to mention during this time was called Brain Fuse. Brain and then fuse like a light bulb. So it actually helps right now, particularly it's useful because it helps with students in particular with a number of resources. It has things like flashcards, all sorts of different other things to help kids learn during this time. But it also has, and I think this is the best feature of it, the two best features are that it actually can give you live feedback with a tutor online any day from 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. if you have a particular question. So if you're working with someone and they're asking you about trigonometry and you're like me and you did not quite get that far, math was not really my thing quite as much, you're able to go ahead and get that help with that. So again, 2 p.m. to 11 p.m., 7 days a week, you can actually get a live online tutor who are experts kind of in those fields, teaching, learning, things like that. You could also submit a paper or a written something, and they can get you back within 24 business hours, can give you feedback on not only the content, but grammar, things like that as well. It also has things for adults in terms of job interviews, things like that, but I really wanted to highlight the particular area for Brain Fuse for kids, just because I know lots of folks, that dynamic has changed the learning for them. So I wanted to make sure to highlight that because it's a really great resource to help support students during this time, if you have any of those. And then lastly, there are 3 databases that are typically on-site only that I wanted to highlight in particular, and that's Ancestry.com, AllData, and the Foundation Directory Online. AllData is actually, it's not a great name because it's auto diagrams, so those kind of Chilton books that you remember seeing, if you're working on your car during this time, you can actually download all the diagrams from your house. And if you're working on your car, you're able to do that. That's called AllData. The Foundation Directory Online, if you have a non-for-profit, really helps you with foundations, different things like that. And the one I really want to make sure you guys know about, which I think has a lot of value, is if you've heard of Ancestry.com, you see commercials for it, things like that. It's typically only for use on site at the library. But since we don't have an on-site right now for the library, they've actually extended it so we can have folks use that remotely as well. So if you wanted to start taking this time to kind of discover, find in the library your past, your history, things like that, it's a really useful way to do it. And then you can do your big research right now, get all the big stuff taken care of, and then as you need it, you can come on in later on and take care of that and do that research that way. The other one thing I wanted to, I'm moving on from that, I think that's all the databases and the e-resources that I kind of have available that I want to talk to you guys about. I did want to mention, I forgot to mention this up front, that I'm having some work done at my house. I actually planned this a couple of months ago, so let me know if you're hearing some noise from outside, and I will go ahead and move. Someone could type or let me know if that's disturbing or you guys can hear that. Hearing none, so I'm going to keep going forward with that. It's a little distracting for me, so if you see me looking over there, apologies, but I'm glad you guys can't hear it. And I did want to mention some of our traditional statistics, things like that. That's kind of the end of my adapted presentation, so I'll give you just a real quick, dirty version of what I kind of typically show people. I tell us some of the statistics about the library, and I could talk about all the numbers, different things like that. I'll go really quickly through it, but again, right now I don't think it's quite as relevant because during this time right now. 2.7 million items per year. We've actually had an increase of 11% of item usage in the past couple of years, so we're really impressed by that. And 2.7 million items come in and out of the library every single year, which is very, very impressive. We have about 16 to 17 uses per person for every man, woman, child, and anything else in between there. In Eugene, it's actually, we average about 16 to 17 uses of the library per item, per person. Compared that with the last community I lived at, Springfield, Illinois, was about 4 to 5. This is a community that really loves its library, and that's something that's really stuck out to me, that this is a community that really loves and appreciates its library. So I'm very grateful for that. We had about a 20% increase in our collection since 2016. One of the big things we've done with the levy money that we've kind of worked with is we've committed to having a really robust, dynamic, in-depth, and good breadth of our collection, and we've really done a nice job with that, adding digital items and physical items as well, growing. We actually have 1.1 million people per year come to the library. Again, that number might be a little bit lower, but we have 1.1 million people coming to our library. I've been told, I don't have any factual data, so I guess I'm not the best librarian because I'm not doing my fact checking, but I've been told that we have the busiest building in Lane County. So over 3,000 people per day for our downtown location is pretty significant. It's really a lot of people coming in and out, and I think we do a really good job balancing that out because it's really important for us to be a place that invites every single person in our community here. So just the importance of the library, I'll quickly touch on that. The library is really an integral player in early literacy. We know that third grade reading levels in Lane County as a whole is about 50%. That's something that we hope the library is trying to reverse that trend because we like to see that number go up go down where we see more folks are at that third grade reading level or above. And so the library is really doing its best to be able to extend that access and make sure we can address that and get it going in the right direction. That's something that's really critical for us that we're keeping our eye on. One other thing I wanted to mention was the library is really important because it's the epicenter of creativity. In my opinion, it's one of the epicenters. Eugene is lucky to have lots of different resources like that, but of creativity, culture, and education. I always consider the library to be an everyman's university that is one of the places in our community that everyone of any age, shape, color, whatever it might be, is able to learn and kind of pursue life interests, things like that. So that's something that's really critical for me. And lastly, I want to mention the library's community problem solver. Most of the time people think of us as resource books, education, literacy, but we're always looking for gaps in our community and kind of looking at where we can do to make the biggest impact as possible. So again, one of the things we're working on right now is actually developing, and kind of relevant to you guys, is working with the Chamber of Commerce on some videos and kind of helping support kind of with some business endeavors, things like that, because we think that that would be something that we could help in kind of adapting to this time right now. So it might be relevant to you guys as well. I'll just keep talking about the library here, you guys. So I think I'll cut myself off. I want to make sure to hear feedback from you because for me, that's really critical. While I think we do a pretty good job and I'm a little biased. So please, if you don't think that, I want to hear that. But I really want to hear from you guys, and I'll answer some of the questions I have in chat. If you'd like to, I'd love to hear from you too. So I'd love to get your feedback, answer any questions you have. Oh, and one last thing, if I can give a quick plug before we get into that. We actually, the foundation, our library foundation has a trivia night. We're trying to get all students in our both Fort and Bethel areas. We know some students are kind of outside of our traditional library district. One of our commitments is try to get those folks that, and so we're doing a fundraiser to work with Fort and Bethel, getting those library cards and that access to those students, support them kind of long term to see what type of impact that makes. So, and I'll just give you a heads up, it's on the 20th, so kind of relevant to what you guys were talking about. They're doing a trivia night as well. It's going to be on May 20th at 7 p.m. So if you really like doing your trivia and you want some more, I'd love to hear from you and get you registered for that. So I want to make sure to answer any questions, and I will answer more library related questions than anything else. In terms of anything related specifically to COVID, I will have to kind of discuss and kind of go over and make sure you check out the city's website, things like that. But I'll try to answer the questions as best as possible that we're getting there. So I did get one that one of the questions was, do you have any idea when you will be opening? Is the city giving you any guidelines? Right now, we're kind of working on reopening. We're waiting to hear more from, May 4th, we're going to hear more. And we're working with the city. We have our ERC, which is our Employee Resource Center, has risk involved with there, who's working very closely with experts like Lake County Public Health to determine what's the proper way to go about this. So I wish I could give you more. I can tell you our staff is just as anxious as you are to use the library to serve you guys, serve everyone here. And so we are working with experts from the city to kind of help work with us to kind of open these things in tandem. And we're working with the Public Library so we can kind of work in tandem together. So one of us doesn't open up and has every single person in the community can do it. So we're really working on that as well. So we're working